All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. We're still talking about the 7th Annual Devolution Conference happening on the 23rd to the 26th of this month in Makueni with 3,000 delegates. All of them have to be fully vaccinated. One of the major themes there is multi-level governance on climate action. That's what we're talking about. Let's see what you're saying online. I see quite some of them. Let's squeeze in two of them, and then I'll read others here. Jacob Abere says the 7th Devolution Conference comes at a time we as a country are fighting common enemies, food insecurity and water. It's time governance to discuss with the national government and other stakeholders in climatic policies because it cuts across human needs that are now declining. Okay. Engineer Lazaro says environmental conservation should start from the grassroots. That's why it's very important for the 7th Annual Devolution Conference to discuss things like forest degradation at length. This is actually where we should start, Governor. Let me bring back Governor Ongwae on this. Governor, at this particular point now, even in the COP26, there was also some commitment to stop deforestation by 2030. But as we speak, should we be working on adaptation or reversing what we've already done in the climate?
It is both. You know, if you're looking at the broad issue of adaptation, adaptation and mitigation are really going together. So for us in this country, we had one of the best forest covers, but you realize what has happened with urbanization, you realize what has happened with the population explosion that we've had. You know how many people were at independence, and you know how many people we are at the moment. And you also are aware of the conversation, the trivialization of the entire argument of environmental management into even a level where it is actually politicized and even ethnicized. That has been a very, very, very big problem in this country. And if we do not ensure that we manage the environment, then I can tell you, Mbija, that we are in a lot of trouble. In the next 10 or 15 years from now, we'll be in so much trouble you won't believe it. And for our future generations, they will be in quite a lot of trouble, not only in the broader context of food security, but also in the broader context of even our own security as the people in this country. So that is why we are very, very, very serious about the environment at the moment. And that is why we chose this theme as subnational governments. And we worked very closely with national government to identify this theme and to discuss it. And we also worked very, very seriously. And I sincerely thank Mwangangi and the entire group of assembly, the County Assemblies Forum and the County Assemblies for passing the various acts and also supporting the financial mitigation measures that have been put in the various budgets of the county governments. So where we are at the moment, unless we take climate seriously, you have traveled, I'm very sure, out of this country, Trevor, and if you go to the developed countries, you will see the level of the forest cover. You go to their countrysides and it's amazing how seriously they protect the environment. They know what they are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honorable Mwangangi, but not all counties assemblies are participating, right? What is your message to the ones that are still not participating in this devolution conference? Is it that they don't see the importance, or what's going on?
Actually, the DEFCON is open to all the county governments fraternity.
Yeah.
And that includes the county assemblies, because nearly all of them have taken a recess for 1 week.
Yeah.
For that particular, conference, so that they can attend, because we've seen the importance of county assemblies on passing of the legislation, and of course sensitization on the issue of climate change. Yeah. And the need to mitigate. So what I would suggest at this particular point is that those who are planning not to attend, I would imagine that the COG will make it possible so that they are able to get representatives, even if it's just 1 or 2 of each of the county assemblies. Yeah. Because the limitation is coming in because of the COVID-19 public health protocols on the limitation of numbers.
Yeah.
But the 3,000 should be, you know, able to cater for representation from across the board on all the county assemblies. And I just want to say something about the issue of adaptation, because you raised it. If you look at the climate change or the global warming that has resulted to what we have, the adverse climate, you know, conditions that we have, it was about industrialization. We are yet to see the end of industrialization, because that is now the time we are saying the developing world should now adopt industrialization as a way of getting developed. I know we still have 4 big agenda, one of which is industrialization for this nation, coming closer home. So if we still want to go the way of industrialization, and we know it is a contributing factor to global warming and the climate change, what are we doing about research and development? Because it is high time that we needed to put in also lots of funds on research so that we can know which is the best way to do industrialization and at the same time address the issue of climate change, which is the best way to do mineral resource exploitation, because we need it. We need the funds from that, the revenue, and at the same time address the issue of climate change.
All right. Governor, there is another issue here. We talked about funding. In the 2022-2023 budget, the counties have been allocated 370 billion. Will this suffice?
No, it would not, because if you look at the adaptation options, which probably if you don't mind, I could go through a few of them. For instance, if you look at water, you are looking at water harvesting, you are looking at storage, you are looking at conservation, and you are looking at even the integration of that, the integrated nature of that. If you are looking at agriculture, you are actually looking at probably trying to do slightly more smart agriculture and also putting in place proper agroforestry practices. If you are looking at even livestock itself, you want to enhance and ensure that the farmers are able to have even proper type of breeds. You are looking at forestry itself. You want communities participating in forestry management. So the amounts of money that we are getting, the amount of money that we are getting this particular year hardly increased from the former financial years. So what county governments have done is they have cut on other areas. They have cut on infrastructure. They have cut on roads. They have cut on other issues that relate to agriculture, on urbanization, and so on, to get resources. That's what I did to get my 100 million in the budget for climate change and action. So the resources, I thought that we should have got resources that were set aside by the National Parliament, both the Senate and the National Assembly, that would have been specifically for climate mitigation, even if the resources went to counties as conditional grants. That has not happened. I do not know under what circumstances they are going to give these resources, but this is an issue that as a national station and also as part of the fourth estate, you need to put pressure on national government so that the subnational governments are actually helped.
Yeah. Mwangangi, there's a direct question here for you from Musoma JM. He says that funny revelations out there that Trevor has been hosting Governor Mutua, who passionately argues that Machakos households have access to clean water. Now the Speaker Mwangangi says nearly all households don't have water. Who is fooling who?
Well, in Machakos we don't have water. In fact, it's a dire situation on the ground. You go to places like Chua. Chua is the neighborhood of Kitui and Machakos. And you find that the families wake up as early as 9 a.m. to go look for water. And it is many kilometers away. And if you look around, you find there's a river. When it rains, lots of water just flows down to the ocean. And then you'd ask yourself, why would we have no water? in that region, because we're letting that water go to the ocean, and then 1 week after, the families start going looking for that water, kilometers away. So the fact of the matter is that we don't have water in the county of Machakos.
Yeah.
And I think it is high time that we walk the talk. And we have little talk, but lots of action on making sure that we deliver on our promises, particularly on the hope that the Constitution gave to Kenyans on devolution, taking services to them. And the 370 billion that you talked about, from what I have noted is that if we use this money properly and for the purposes that it is set, and make sure that there is prudence use of every cent that is comprised in this 370 billion, we shall make a lot of mileage on providing the services to the people.
Yeah.
And in addition, I just want to remind us Kenyans that the county governments, most of them have lots of huge on-source revenue, which, if well harnessed and well used, it can actually assist even the national government. Yeah. Some of the counties may even be able to chip a little to the management of the national government. I'm just looking at the Machakos County itself. We have huge, huge on revenue resources. Yeah. If we are able to collect that money effectively, taking care of the mwananchi, not to overtax them. Yeah. If we are able to collect all the cess that we have from the minerals that we have in the county, by way of the sand, by way of the quarries, lots of stuff coming from there. Yeah. Then we can be able, sometimes I think, and I believe it's possible, that we may not even have to look up to the national government every other time to give us the funding. Of course, I have in mind that all the revenue that we have with the national government comes also from the county governments. So it's about sharing that money that is raised nationally. Yeah. But let us look at our own source revenue as county governments, and let us look at how we are using the money that is available to us from the national government as the equitable share. Okay. And I think we will go a long way even into giving people services, even on the basis of these 370 billion. Okay. Of course, in addition to whatever other financial aid we get from donors. Okay. Because they are also after transparency. They are after accountability. And every cent they give, because it comes from their taxpayers, should be used for the purposes for which they have given that donation. Okay.
So you think this is an issue of just prudent use. Governor, let me bring you back onto this conversation. So I see you're reading from different scripts. You say it's not enough. Mwangangi says it's an issue of prudent use. Let's talk about Kisii, for example. So when this money comes, how much of it goes to recurrent expenditure? And the moment you have on-source revenue either way, it still has to be sent to the national government first, then it comes back to you, right?
I think, Trevor, so that we don't lose track of why we are sitting here today. Yeah. And this is an argument that can become a moot argument. On-source revenue is tricky. Urban counties can talk about on-source revenue like what Mwangangi is talking about. Let's look at Machakos. Machakos, you are dealing with Earth River and those serious developments that are there. You are dealing with Machakos itself, which developed before devolution was fully developed. You go to rural counties, go to Isiolo, go to all those other very rural counties and start talking to them about on-source revenue. What are you taxing there? There are no particular structures that have been put up that you are taxing. You are actually taxing boda boda and mama mboga and so on. So you are dealing here with a subject that will take the whole morning to discuss. We have counties and counties in this country. There are those counties, you are looking at Machakos, you are looking at Kiambu, you are looking at Nakuru, you are looking at Kisumu, you are looking at Mombasa. You are looking at those counties that can actually seriously generate on-source revenue. But in the broader sense, I want us to go back to this climate action thing and the interventions that we can put in place, because I will tell you for a fact that counties are not getting enough money, and I'll tell you why. Look at our budget, national budget. You're dealing with over 2 trillion shillings. If you are dealing with over 2 trillion shillings and well aware that development actually takes place in the counties, and then the counties are getting 1/8 of that, we're getting about 370, like you're saying, 370 billion. Out of, if you calculate the percentage of that in relation to over 2.4 trillion or whatever of the budget, then you can see that what is given to the counties, and that money that counties are given is also both for development and for recurrent, meaning paying salaries and paying everything. So this argument of financing, whether locally or nationally, is an argument that you probably need to call us another time, and we sit and discuss. I would want to, if I can go back to the commitments that have been made. Our own president has made very serious commitments on the broader issue of climate action and the mitigation measures this country will put in place. And I wanted to take you through them so that we can see how they can actually be financed. One of them is reforestation, which he has fully committed himself to. The second one is a blue economy. The third one is the restoration of our own water towers. And the fourth one is the transition to renewable energy sources. And the renewable energy sources, you're talking, because even in Glasgow, they basically were talking about the emissions as being contributing to almost close to 80% of the problems that we have in the problem of climate action. Greenhouse emissions. So this is a conversation because you cannot talk about financing without looking at the government's commitments and the areas of commitment. I think the issue for us going forward is the president has announced himself on a number of these issues, and is not announcing himself as a person but as a leader of this country, and we all agree with him as governors, and that is why we've passed all the various legislations that we've done, and that is why we have gone and rationalized our budgets, because what we did with our budgets is to rationalize them. Since we did not get additional resources, it means that we rationalize those budgets. And so we are in a situation as a country where, and that is why all the developing countries actually were asking the developed countries in Glasgow during the COVID-26 that they must support us. And that's why they all agreed that they are going to double their support. From current levels, they are going to double their support going forward up to 2025. Actually, they were given up to 2025 to ensure that each of the developed countries double their financial support. So we are in a situation where you can't even start arguing that because if you look at the counties that are not urban, their own source of revenue is really low, and the areas that they have been given to raise revenue from are not areas that are expandable, that you can say you are going to expand on. So this is a difficult area, Trevor. It's an area that we can discuss another time. But I would want to say that it's also an issue that is under discussion. We are going to discuss it. It is as a part of the Makueni conference. It is a major issue of discussion. Revenue, the financing of mitigation measures that are going to be put in place, both mitigation and adaptation measures that are going to be put in place. It is a major conference discussion issue, and that's why we're going to Makueni. We are going there to ask the countries, to what extent are you going to ensure that you are financing all the adaptation and mitigation measures? That is a major point of discussion, both in plenary and in the breakout groups. And by the time that we leave Makueni, there will be very serious recommendation, not only for the counties, but also for the national government. And since Parliament is also going to be presented, the speakers of both Senate and the National Assembly are going to be there. So as the resolutions are going to come out, these resolutions I'm suggesting, and I'm certain, are going to influence the next budget and the next policy, the next policy paper for this country on financing our activities in the coming years.
Okay. Mwangangi, how will you ensure then that all the commitments that are made in Makueni are followed through?
Thank you. I'll just start by, Trevor, appreciating that the conference is taking place in Makueni, which is a semi-arid area. And for purposes of implementation of the resolutions that are going to be passed there, we'll have to have the goodwill of both the county executive and the county assembly, and also the national government. Because it's one thing to discuss a matter as serious as climate change, and it's another thing to implement what we've resolved on the issues. And when I look at the ASALs, that is the arid and semi-arid areas, this give a very good starting point for purposes of addressing climate change. Because remember, we are talking of afforestation or tree growing, and we have expansive parcels of land. Such areas, we have big parcels of land where if we went out of our way, and especially by way of mitigation, we are able to increase even the forest cover. I think the government, both national and county government, should go out of their way even to set intended, self-driven processes of putting up forests in the areas of the ASALs. And I think when we are at Makueni, we should be looking for those possibilities. And then the other issue that perhaps I could mention at this time is the CBOs, or community-based organizations, because we keep on talking about reaching the mwananchi at the grassroots to be able to address the issue of climate change, or that is, devolving the issue of climate change. So if we go by way of organizing the population into community-based groups, this is going to help, because if you look at even the time of Wangari Maathai, she fought so hard about the issue of CBOs, those who would live within forests and make sure that they take care of the forest. And of course, in controlled circumstances, they are able to remove the fallen woods from the forest, but at the same time make sure that they plant a tree in that forest. But remember, we still go back to the issue of water. These issues are intertwined, and we'll have to start from one side, especially of providing water, and then we start talking of the people, about now growing trees in the forest. Then finally, I've looked at the forests that we have. I had occasion to go around, especially I mentioned when I was serving in the Public Complaints Committee on Environment. But you find that there is this issue of land, which we need to address seriously, because the people, a number of them have encroached into the forests. And this is how we have the issue now of deforestation. The Mau forest is one big example. We have looked at the Kakamega forest, it's also disappearing. The Aberdare forest is also disappearing. And even coming close home, we have one here, Katunga Forest. We have a lot of tree felling, and then you see efforts for humans to extend their habitation into the forest. So even as we address the issue of climate change, the issue of land, we still need to address it.
Okay. Yes. Governor, you had mentioned earlier on that the conversation around climate change can sometimes be trivialized and even be politicized. Some of the governors who are actually attending this 7th annual Devolution conference are outgoing. How then do you ensure that your successor sticks to the momentum that you had started, considering they can just start and rationalize their budget in their own way?
Trevor, are you talking to me or to...
Yes, to you, Governor.
Yeah, if you are talking to me, governments are perpetual, Trevor. They are not individualized, and that perpetuity is ingrained in the institutional structuring. In Kisii County, for instance, I've created, and that's about a few months ago, we created the Directorate of Climate Change with a director with a budget. I told you that we put a budget of 100 million. So it's not about an individual, it's not about Ongwae, it's not about Ombija, it's really about institutions which are perpetual. If you actually progress that argument, you would even progress it nationally and indicate that when a given president leaves, a new president is not going, by the time the new governor comes in, he would be running with my budget because I'm doing the budget before I leave. So there will be a budget. So if he wants to sit there and he cannot go and spend money outside the budget. So I don't see that as a problem, really. Because of the perpetuity in government, because of the fact that you have offices that are existing, I don't see that as a problem.
Yeah.
And this commitment is also a commitment by the Council of Governors. I'm hoping that most of the governors who are there, that most of them may come back. I pray for them to come back, like some of us did, so that they continue with the good work that would have been passed under the Council of Governors.
Yeah, but Governor, the other issue that has also come up several times is the issue of pending bills. Is this something you're going to address, and why has this been such a thorn in the flesh for the county governments?
Pending bills is historical. Remember that by the time that we came in as county governments, we found pending bills that were there that the national government had already not paid, and they are running into billions. In every county, it's probably close to 1 billion shillings in every county. But for most county governments, what we did agree, especially in the last phase, we were closing the last financial year, and this was an edict that was passed by the Controller of Budget and the Treasury, and in discussion with the Council of Governors, whatever resources that we were given, we all agreed that the first priority would be pending bills. And the pending bills in counties have been reduced drastically. And let me tell you this, that pending bills are probably higher in national government than in counties. The second problem that we have is the way the resources go to the counties. National government receive their resources quarterly. Counties receive their resources monthly. And then what does happen is that, for instance, this financial year, the resources started flowing in very late, around September. And then by the time that we are reaching the end of the financial year, like what happened during this last financial year, they gave us the resources on 30th of June. So for 3 months, which we had not got, we got on 30th of June. So even in terms of developmental programs, because people must be paid in order to do work, if the contractor is on site and is not being paid, so that work actually you would find that the work has stalled because of non-payment. So there are very many factors that one would go through that are leading to this. One would be the problem that we have of financial stability, the resources coming in. The other one would be management of resources at the county levels that I can't run away from. It's a fact. No, it's not only management of resources at the county levels, even at the national level, they also have their own probably issues of management of the resources. In terms of the distribution of these resources, how do you pay off whatever that you've received? For us who receive resources monthly, it means that you must keep on paying the contractors little by little, because you don't receive enough. If we were receiving quarterly, then it would be very easy to clear the debts. But that's not an excuse. We shouldn't be having end debts. Just like in your own house, you should be living debt-free. It is an issue that we are also conversing at the Council of Governors. And indeed, we have all agreed as governors that we must clear our debts. And there is a conversation that we are also having with the Controller of Budget and with the Treasury. And it's an issue that we have taken very seriously.
Okay.
And even with the Auditor General.
Okay. Mwangangi, in your view, what is the issue here, especially on pending bills? Because there's the CIDP, the County Integrated Development Plan, that is passed by the County Assembly's Forum all the time. How do we still end up with pending bills? Are we living beyond our means, or what happens?
I think the main issue on pending bills really is just the way we manage our affairs. Because every time our government or a state organ is going to procure, there's usually a procurement plan. And you cannot go to procure if you don't have the budget.
Yeah.
So much as I agree with the governor that there are historical liabilities that accrued particularly to the former local governments, we also remember that the liabilities were also taken over with assets.
Yeah.
And it's about managing our finances in view of what the needs we have on the table. And especially when we talk of pending bills, let's not forget that it is money that is owing to the members of the public, especially the genuine ones, those who gave their services. Some of them took loans and they haven't been paid. You can imagine what situation they are in financially. A number of them have closed business, and a number of them also passed on out of ailments related to the stress that you get when you are financially down.
Yeah.
And the lender is knocking on your door. That's a bank. So what we need to do, even as we address the issue of the historical factor that has contributed to the issue of pending bills in county governments, we'll also need to see how best we can address, especially when we get our funding, because it is actually the law that the first charge on the budget of any state agency is that bill, the pending bill.
Okay.
So if we go out of our way to reduce it seriously and also manage now the creditors, because creditors will be current, and unless you check the creditors, they also turn out to be a pending bill come the next financial year. It is just about how we manage our affairs, but again, we'll have to have the national government also going out of its way to see how through the National Treasury they can perhaps address the issue of pending bills, mostly that are historical, so that then they are able to top up on the budget that goes to the county governments, so that then we don't stall development. Because you want to give services to the people, and you find that you also have to pay the pending bills. You may be getting county governments that actually are bankrupt if you look at the indebtedness against what they have by way of their revenues.
As we wind up on this, Madam Mwangangi, what would you like to see come out from the Devolution Conference? What is that one thing you would want to see?
I want to see from the Devolution Conference a concerted effort and a meaningful action on climate change, because it is only us who are going to make the change, and especially when it comes to devolution, because the people are there. Kenya is consisting, it is made up of the county governments, and so every Kenyan is there. So we can be able to address the issue of climate change if we go on all fours and decide that it is going to be now and not tomorrow. And let us not forget that the target of 10% forest cover, which is hoped to address the issue of mitigation on climate change, is supposed to have been achieved by next year, 2022. We are almost there. So what do we do to bridge that gap? So that then those county assemblies which have not passed the legislation on climate change should hurry up and finalize. I've seen the list of those who are pending, where that action is pending. A number of them are on last reading, a number of them are at committee stage. Really, let us expedite the process so that then we can be able to give the county executive the law, and when the funding for climate change comes, then it's supposed to be used prudently. Transparency is key.
All right.
Yes.
Governor Ongwae, final word on this. As the chair for the steering committee, what would you like to see achieved during the 7th Annual Devolution Conference?
Thank you very much. I would, from the financial side, I would seriously want to see this forum urging serious investment in the reversing of the negative impact on climate change in this country. And I would want that seriously national government, the major local and international people, those banks and others, putting resources on areas that can mitigate on climate. That is on the financial side, and also the county governments, and ensuring that all the people come together. On the issue of the actual institutional frameworking on how this should be done, implementing the adaptation and other mitigation measures, national government and county government must put in place measures that ensure that there is broad stakeholder engagement. For us, the stakeholder engagement is up to the ward level. That means that we are getting to the common person who would want to see that institutional framework under the discussions and the conversations going on at the local level. For instance, very, very simply, just simple measures of ensuring that we plant trees. In Kisii, I passed an order that is sometimes a bit difficult to, because we have a tree here that has been giving us problems, which takes a lot of water. And I was asking, I put in place a committee to ensure that we give them different type of trees to plant, so that the eucalyptus tree. And we are asking the Kisis if they can plant other trees, because the eucalyptus tree takes a lot of water. So overall, I would say that if we can be able to establish mechanisms to engage communities, both in risk assessment and resilience planning, mainstream climate action and resilience building in county planning and budgeting, not only in county planning and budgeting, but in national planning, increase the county investment budgets that promote social resilience outcomes. It is extremely important, and the participatory manner in which we look at climate action, we shouldn't look at it as a nebulous area, an area that you don't understand. It's an area now that is common to us. Is an area that the other day I was passing through Machakos and Mwangangi as I was going to Wote, and I would see that you have got very many hilly areas like those of Kisii, and I could see that we now, because of population, we have people on those hilly areas, which means that we are degrading the environment. These are issues not only for me in Kisii, but also for you in Machakos and other areas that we need to look at. We are also going to discuss them in this conference. What do you actually do with high populations and areas that need to be having forests? The question of all the counties ensuring that they have a county climate change fund and climate change units, which I've talked about. For us, I've indicated that we have a climate change fund which has been put in place, and the budgeting is there. And finally, the issue of the enactment of the relevant policies and legislations, both at the national and at the county levels. So for me and for my sister there, Mwangangi, I think we're reading from the same script. We are saying that we have taken this seriously as county governments, as subnational governments. We are working very closely with national government, and that's why we're going to have a national conference that will be attended by His Excellency the President, the Deputy President, the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Cabinet Secretaries, members of Parliament, especially, much more especially the Senate, who have actually contributed tremendously financially. They are supporting this function almost by about a quarter.
Yeah.
%. They have taken it very seriously. They are giving their own resources from the Senate. So, and the county governments are also doing the same. So, Trevor, what I'm saying is that as a nation, we are now serious. We have accepted the reality that you can't play around with the climate. that you would actually be messing the country and the generations to come. You would be affecting your own food security. You would be affecting the security of your own country and even the broader development of your own country. So, and that is why we're asking the Fourth Estate to tell Kenyans that we're having this national conference, and it's a conference that is seriously out of need, and that as a country, we are the first country in this world to have the conference after the COP26.
Okay. Thank you very much for making time this morning, His Excellency Honorable James Ongwae, the Vice Chair, Council of Governors and Chair, Steering Committee of the 7th Annual Devolution Conference, and also the Kisii Governor, and Honorable Florence Mwangangi, Speaker, Machakos County Assembly and Deputy Chairperson, County Assemblies Forum. The Devolution Conference is happening in Makueni from the 23rd to the 26th. The sub-theme is mostly multi-level governance and climate action. And this has been Daybreak Conversation. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Willis Bazuraburu is here. They're talking about celebrating female bodybuilders. All right. See you shortly.